Brief warning, tonight's show, as usual, contains bright, flashy lights and some suggestions to hypnosis, as well as droning on and on about government research into, well, the absolute. Concepts about otherworldly things and mysterious behaviors of the universe, omniverse, metaverse are all included. So if any of this offends you, this might not be for you, but otherwise, hang on out. The stream is fine. Within every one of us, there's a greater sense that there's more. What that more is something that means something different individually. Each and every one of us, the billions of us, have this different sense of ourself and id. What if you found out that id was a manifestation of one's own need? That rather, in our core, our self, imagining
in this
ourself.
exercise, you will explore the far reaches of Focus 15.
What if you found out that you were just imagining purposefully to create a better you somewhere else? But this imagination was so powerful that it actually made an agreement.
Begin with your preparatory process. Then move to Focus 12 by the method you have learned and I'll join you there.
What if you found out that agreement was something that was made long, long before anything was made, but rather it was made before anything was even conceived of? The process that you hear going on in the background is an actual example of Focus 15. At this point, a subject who is well versed in the systems of the gateway process would be at about level 12, I believe. And you transcend through imagery and self-meditating exploration into an out-of-body controlled consciousness that is an altered state of being. Now, don't get confused by the terminology I'm using. All of it is based in some form of scientific method, practice, or proven method. One of the more shocking things about what I'm going to continue sharing this evening is that it is nothing less than a government piece of paperwork, a report to the Department of the Military. And if you ever wanted to experience for yourself what the gateway process was all about, the meditation and the practices, the website, well, it's available to anybody. And I'll make sure to put a link to the Monroe Institute and the sciences by which they study later on this evening. But first, hi everyone, I'm AronMSound, and this is the show known as Lookup, the Remix, where I interject myself into a conversation that most people don't want me to be involved in, by way of which I take it somewhere it's not meant to go. And this evening I will continue on reading from the report to the Department of the Military, the Army, on the gateway process. And luckily we stopped last night just as we hit the recap, and it talks about one of the more challenging yet unifying concepts in the entirety of the report. And before I go ahead and just head straight on back into the report and drone on, and if you're wondering why I would do such a thing, as well as I believe these things, well, if they aren't just read out loud without too much opinion, but rather just a blatant reading, then it's hard to have an opinion afterwards without saying that somebody implied theirs. So that's why I'm going to be taking phone calls. If you have any questions, happy to look at any of it again while I'm reading through it. And actually, let me take the looks like there's an effect on it right now. That might make it harder to read. Give me 1 segundo here. Himmel, ja, oh. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, what's your trans, cries mosquitoes, bullet dance? It's Lita Cabrera. How's it going, Lita? What's going on? It's just warming up in here. Just getting the opening session going. It's like being in the bar at like 8:30, I guess. We shall find out. Maybe it's just a small reading room today. I don't know. Anyhow, we're going back in to read about the rest of the Gateway experience, and I think it's where it gets really important, it gets really interesting, and it challenges the most. Other than just sitting in a chair with a tiny fluffy ball behind me that won't let me recline because it says repeatedly, meow. I'm a producer now, meow. We can talk about that later. That's a different subject, and maybe a sore one at that point in time. But anyways, yeah, and if you think I don't actually want to lift her up right now because she's just too cute and asleep behind me, so, or acting like she is, like she won't give me the rest of the chair. But anyhow, the absolute, a unifying feature of an all-being that is made up of all sentient things across all planes of existence. A terrifying, strange, metaphysical kind of concept that is mirrored in most human belief systems, but also mirrored in the strange fractal and mathematical environment that we find ourselves in. A holographic environment where the material universe crashes down into being, and its reflection, its noise, the actual static energy that comes off of it, the frenetic waveform, its precursor wave, is what we know as light. So that light reflects off the dust cloud and the matter in many different spectrums. That's just what we can see and perceive and what we know about now. I'm sure there'll be a time where we know even more, because we keep adding to our cute little limited knowledge. And I say that patronizingly because every time we believe we know something, turns out we know so much less in the perspective of the absolute. Because the concept of the absolute is that it is the only plane of existence where there is no holographic projection. That place is where everything else is produced from. A concept of a waveform so pristine that it is dead line, basically. One solid line of cohesion. Now, I have my theories on it. I think there are a number of theories about those things, but the consistent message, at least from this report, is that that being, whatever it is, that absolute, that thing, is everything. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, it's everything. Is, was, now, then, there, maybe, somehow, any version of it all, permutating into every fractalin possible crag and cranny of possibility, and as I say, permutation, because it seems to be looking for a better outcome. And there are arguments and concepts within this report that suggest it's looking for a better outcome for the larger self being us in a meta state. And if that is a mirror of the absolute, then it is us. That's the message. And some would reject that because it doesn't align quite so well with some of the beliefs here in humanity. But I would argue to say it makes it all the more beautiful that free will is even more potent, because as reality is made up of our combined recognitions, an interference pattern caused by the observation of the atomic environment, basically the electrons forming at the beginning of time to become an interference pattern so that it becomes matter as a form when in a mass. I mean, these are amazing things, but these have become quantifiable, researched, not even problematic concepts. And where we're at now is contemplating theories like dark matter, not an absolute, but something we can't perceive. So we've given it a name, and we know that it exists in the largest state of being. Because apparently the only amount of matter in the universe is a tiny amount of what actually exists in the vacuum out there. So if this is what we can see, imagine what it's like, and all the different levels and layers that are in between here, through the veils, past the static environment and into the void and nil of the absolute. Stunning, really. At the same time, wonderful. Life is a journey and gift, if this is true. But enough of me. So we were at just past this, but I'm going to read it again. And I'll turn off the call-in until I hear from somebody. If anybody wants to call in and talk about this or ask questions or, throw slanderous remarks about people for no apparent reason, no, don't do that. Please, call someone else. There's plenty of channels for that. Also, plenty of channels that clearly can find their others. The streamer. Thank you. All right. Ready? Let's go. Absolute in perspective, number 23. It may be helpful. Oh, geez, let me shrink myself down. And Okja! Oh, all right. Much better. Easier to read when you're tiny. And the words are huge. I imagine, speaking of terrible things to say, but it's It's actually pretty funny. I imagine, and always have, that Tree of Knowledge 411 is instead of being as tall as she is, she's actually only about 3 inches tall. She just says she's 6'1", and she's actually the height you see her on camera, just like I am right now, like on your phone. Just very tiny, and everything is huge. She's on a desk. She's filming herself at real height. She's very close to the camera, actually. I'm kidding. That is not true in any way, shape, or form. She's not a tiny person. Don't. Or clip me. Send that to her, because I think it's funny. The lore of Tiny 411. Anyway. Here we go. Absolute in perspective. It may be helpful at this point to pause and recap. Sure. The major aspects of our intellectual journey from time and space. To the realm of the absolute. We have spoken at some length concerning the incredibly complex hologram, which is created by the intersection of energy patterns generated by the totality of all dimensions of the universe, time, space included. We have noted that our minds constitute energy fields which interact with various aspects of this hologram to deduce information. Hey, Lizard Tree, what's happening? Good evening. The major aspects of our intellectual journey from time-space to the realm of the absolute. We have spoken at some length concerning the incredibly complex hologram, which is created by intersection of energy patterns generated by the totality of all dimensions of the universe, time, space included. We've noted that our minds constitute energy fields which interact with various aspects of this hologram to deduce information, which is ultimately processed through the left hemisphere of our brains to reduce it to a form that we employ for the process that we call thinking. We've implied that this hologram is the finite embodiment of active energy form of the infinite consciousness of the absolute. It is the title we assign to the vast pool of energy and a state of perfect rest over which the physical universe is layered and from whence it comes. Incidentally, to describe this, Dr. Bentov uses the excuse me this evening. Just warming up, obviously. We have implied that this hologram is the finite embodiment in active energy form of the infinite consciousness of the absolute. It is the title we assign to that vast pool of energy in a state of perfect rest over which the physical universe is layered and from whence it comes. Incidentally, to describe this, Bentov uses the analogy of a very deep sea, comparing the still depths of the sea to the dimension of the absolute, while assigning the storm-tossed waves above to represent the physical universe with which we are familiar. The slightly agitated currents of the sea to be found in between the turbulent surface and the totally still depths represent energy in the process of either going into rest, i.e. approaching infinity, or coming out of rest. Not unlike the waveform. From Big Bang to Torus. Working from the widely accepted Big Bang theory, Bentov presents a conceptual model to depict the process of time-space evolution, the relative position of the universal hologram. That hologram is often called a torus because it is thought to have the overall shape of an immense self-contained spiral. Basing his thesis on recent studies concerning the distribution of quasars, quasi-stellar objects, and operating on the premise that in the universe, smaller processes tend to be mirror images of larger ones, i.e., the pattern of electrons around the nucleus of an atom mirrors the way planets orbit their suns, and so on. Okay. Bentov postulates the following scenario. Taking his cue from the observed capability of quasars to eject enormous concentrated beams of matter from their interiors in a controlled, non-concentrated version of the Big Bang. He envisages a similar process occurring in the generation of the universe. See Exhibit 4 on the next page. Noting that those galaxies located in the north of our own galaxy are moving away faster than those located to the south, and that those to the east and the west are demonstrably more distant Bentov regards this as substantive evidence that the jet of matter, which expanded into our universe, has turned back upon itself, eventually forming an ovoid or egg shape. He sees matter in our universe entering the ovoid pattern following ejection from a nucleus composed of extremely compressed energy through a white hole. At the end of its trip to the far end of the ovoid, he sees it departing via a black hole. In such a model, time is observed to be a measure of the change which occurs as energy evolves into new, more complex forms as it progresses along the distance from the white hole side of the nucleus, around the shell of this cosmic egg, until it enters the black hole. In other words, as energy expelled from infinity and confined within limits of consciousness of the absolute achieves form and motion following ejection from the white hole at the top of the egg, time begins as the motion following the ejection from the white hole at the top of the egg. Time begins as the measure of the cadence of the evolutionary movement as quote-unquote reality goes around the shell of the egg on its journey to the black hole at the far end. Oh, that's fascinating. Our place in time. Section 25. The observed distribution of galaxies suggests that our particular universe is located near the top of the egg, at the point where matter begins to fall back on itself, thus explaining the reason why the galaxies to the north are seen to be moving away more rapidly as they are caught up in the downturn of the stream of matter towards the far end of the cosmic egg. See Exhibit 5, next page. Layered over this cosmic egg is the absolute, which sustains the radiating nucleus for which the original jet of matter issued forth. As the stream of matter moves around the ovoid towards its destination at the black hole, hold the thought, please. There's a photograph, poorly copied, of Quasar. But we have better images of those now. That's just a poor copy of it. The Taurus. Although this is true, this is a very rudimentary image. We have such better images now of this. Yes, some, half trillion years from now, long after our sun has burned out, and we are all but a memory, many, many times over. So it's nothing to worry about. And don't forget, life is going to get you anyway. Life is the most deadly of all the serial killers, I'll tell you. They never go after, why don't they ever go after life? Okay? They always go after death, but they never go after life. That's the one that really gets you. Time and time again. Over and over. Everybody's like, oh, death, sickle. No. That's just a caretaker for like 8 minutes. Life toys with you the whole time. Seriously. Where was I? Sorry. Oh. As the stream of matter moves around the ovoid towards its destination, the black hole, which we were looking at, where it will be reabsorbed into the radiating nucleus, and then the absolute, it generates the interference pattern within the cosmic egg, which constitutes the universal hologram or torus. Since the torus is being simultaneously generated by matter in all the various phases of time, quote unquote, it reflects the development of the universe in the past, present, and future, as it would be seen from our particular perspective in one phase of time. By reflecting on this model, it becomes possible to see how human consciousness brought to a sufficiently altered or focused state, could obtain information concerning the past, the present, and the future, since they all exist in the universal hologram simultaneously. In the case of the future, because of all the consequences of the past and present can be seen coming together in the hologram, such that the future can be predicted or seen with absolute accuracy or total accuracy. Moreover, it is possible to see how the implosion of energy patterns would cross and recross to create an incredibly complex four-dimensional hologram or torus in spiral shape in reflection of the multi-dimensional developing pattern of evolution. All the movements of the energies which comprise the universe leave their mark and hence tell the story throughout time. Number 26, quality of consciousness. We noted earlier that the out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness, so that it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition or into other dimensions outside of time-space, perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the time-space. Within the universe. Let me read that again. Quality of consciousness, number 26. We noted earlier that the out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness, so that it may move either freely through the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition or into other dimensions outside of time-space, perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the universe. Consciousness is the organizing and sustaining principle that provides the impetus and guidance to bring and keep energy in motion within a given set of parameters, so that a specific reality will result. When consciousness reaches a state of sophistication in which it can perceive itself, its own hologram, it reaches to the point of self-cognition. Human beings have this form of elevated consciousness, as does the absolute, but in case of the latter, it is a function of energy, and it is associated quality of consciousness in infinity, omniscience, and omnipotence in perceptual unity. When energy returns to a state of total rest within the absolute, it returns to the continuum of consciousness in the pool of limitless, timeless perception that resides there. Thus, the more complex an energy system in the material state, the more consciousness it possesses to maintain its reality. Our consciousness, therefore, is that differentiated aspect of the universal consciousness which resides within the absolute. It accounts for the organization of energy patterns which constitute our physical body, but is distinctly separate from our and superior to it. Okay. Since consciousness exists quite apart from and outside of reality, beyond the bounds of space-time, it, like the absolute, has neither beginning nor an end. Reality has both a beginning and an end because it is bounded within time-space, but the fundamental quantum of energy and its associated consciousness is eternal. When reality ends, its constituent energy simply returns to infinity in the absolute. There's your answer, lizard tree. Number 27, consciousness in perspective. Having ascertained that human consciousness is able to separate from physical reality and interact with other intelligences in other dimensions within the universe, and that it is both eternal and destined for ultimate return to the absolute, we are faced with the question, so what happens then? Since memory is a function of consciousness, and therefore enjoys the same eternal character as the consciousness which accounts for its existence, it must be admitted that when consciousness returns to the absolute, it brings with it all the memories it has accumulated through experience in reality. The return of consciousness to the absolute does not imply an extinction of this separate entity, which the consciousness organized and sustained in reality. Rather, it suggests a differentiated consciousness which merges with and participates in the universal consciousness and infinity of the absolute without losing the separate identity and accumulated self-knowledge which its memories confer upon it. What it does lose is the capability for generation of independent thought holograms, since that can only be done by energy in motion. In other words, it retains the power to perceive but loses the power of will or choice. In exchange, however, this consciousness participates in the all-knowing infinite continuum of consciousness, which is a characteristic of energy in the ever-present. Consequentially, it is accurate to observe when a person experiences the out-of-body state, he is, in fact, projecting that eternal spark of consciousness and memory, which constitutes the ultimate source of his identity, to let it play in and learn from dimensions both inside and outside time-space world in which his physical component currently enjoys a short period of reality. Number 28, the gateway method. Having put the gateway experience in context by postulating a structural outline of how and why it comes to work, and having shown what it is designed to achieve, the time has come to examine the specific techniques which comprise the gateway training process. These techniques are designed to enable the user of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states, which can be achieved if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. The amount of time required to reach advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies with the individual. The sensitivity of his nervous system, their general state of mind, and the extent to which they have previously developed facility in related techniques, such as transcendental meditation, all of these are pertinent factors affecting the speed at which they may expect to progress. The gateway process begins by teaching the individual participant to isolate extraneous concerns in a visualization device called an energy conversion box. Next, the participation is introduced to a method of encouraging his mind-body to strive to achieve a state of resonance through utterance of a single tone, a monotonous, protracted humming sound that sets a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. He engages in this resonant tuning, as it is called, by humming along with a chorus of such sounds that are contained in the gateway tape. Following this, the participant is exposed to the gateway affirmation and is encouraged to repeat it to himself as he hears it repeated on the tape. This affirmation is a statement to the effect that the individual realizes that they are more than merely a physical body and that they deeply desire to expand their consciousness. 29. The hemisync introduced. After that, they are exposed for the first time to the hemisync sound frequencies, and it is encouraged to focus on and develop a perception of and appreciation for those feelings which accompany the synchronization of brainwave that results synchronization of the brainwave results. Next comes the technique of progressive and systematic physical relaxation, while the hemisync frequencies are expanded to include additional forms of pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well as to calm the left hemisphere of the mind, while raising the right hemisphere to a state of heightened attentiveness. Once all of this is achieved, the participant is invited to envisage creation of an energy balloon, comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending all the way down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved with this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out of the balloon pattern again. The energy balloon which sets up a pattern very reminiscent of the cosmic egg discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of suitable resonant state, but it is also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels which the participant might encounter in the event that they achieve an out-of-body state. It serves a precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant's first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. Wow. Bet that would happen. Advanced Techniques, Part 30. Having reached Focus 10, the participant is now ready to endeavor to achieve a state of sufficiently expanded awareness to begin actually interacting with the dimensions beyond those associated with their experience of physical reality. The state is called Focus 12, and involves conscious efforts of their part, while additional forms of pink and white noise enter the sound stream, being directed into the ears of the gateway tape. Once the participant has achieved this state of greatly expanded awareness, they are ready to begin employing a series of specific techniques or tools that the Monroe Institute characterizes them, which enables them to manipulate their newly founded awareness to obtain practical, useful feedback of value for promoting self-discovery and personal growth. The specific techniques involved are described individually below. Part A, problem solving. This technique involves identifying fundamental problems which the individual wishes to see solved, filling his expanded awareness with his perception of these problems and then projecting them out into the universe. In this way, the individual enlists the assistance of what Monroe Institute calls his higher self. In other words, their expanded consciousness to interact with the universal hologram to obtain the information required to solve the problem. This approach may be used to solve personal difficulties, technical problems in the realm of physics, mathematics, etc., practical administrative problems, and so on. Responses to the problem-solving techniques may be received almost immediately, but often they come based on developing intuition over the next 2 or 3 days. Frequently, the response comes in the form of a sudden holistic perception in which the individual suddenly finds that they simply know the answer and all of its ramifications completely in context, sometimes without even being able to put their newly found perception into words, at least initially. In some cases, the response may even arrive in the form of visual symbols, which the individual will see with their mind while they're in the Focus 12 state, in which they will have to interpret after they return to normal consciousness. Part B, patterning. This technique involves use of the consciousness to achieve desired objectives in the physical, emotional, or intellectual sphere. It involves concentration of the desired object while in a Focus 12 state. Extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the whole expanded consciousness and its projection into the universe, with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement, which is destined to be realized within the time frame specified. This particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our consciousness in a state of expanded awareness create holograms which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and in doing so, establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought-generated hologram of the sought-after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under other circumstances, ever occur. In other words, the technique of patterning recognizes the fact that since consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time-space as it applies to us, if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. However, the more complicated the objective sought, and the more radically it departs from our current reality, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient our reality sphere to accommodate our desires. Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of the process because the individual could succeed in dislocating their existence or existing reality with what they say is drastic consequences. C. Color breathing. The next technique is called color breathing and is designed to use the expanded awareness and highly focused attentiveness associated with the Focus 12 state to imagine various colors in a particularly intense and vivid manner so as to use them to resonate with and in turn to activate the body's own energies. Fundamentally, in terms of practical application, it is a healing technique which is designed to restore the body and to enhance its physical capabilities by balancing, revitalizing, and retuning bodily energy flows. It is predicted on the principle that the body's electromagnetic field is capable of altering its resonance pattern so that as to entrain energy from the Earth's electrostatic field for its own use. The various colors envisaged in the specific amplitude are desired in connection with this entrainment and the subsequent alterations in bodily energy flow patterns. That color has the capacity to affect the human mind is well known, and the effectuality of color in certain kinds of healing is a demonstrable fact. For example, application of an intense blue light to an area of physical tumescence leads to relatively tumescence. Interesting placement for that word. For example, application of an intense blue light to the area of physical tumescence leads to relatively rapid and easily observable reduction in the swelling, while red, and to a lesser extent, yellow, have quite the opposite effect. However, in the hemisync application of the technique, external light sources are not involved, but rather the mind is the sole agent of the healing and revitalization. Hello, Song Wang. I can't wait to see you come back. Oh, you're back. That's true. Thank you for being back. Part D, the energy bar tool. Magic wands and enchanted scepters have been part of the folklore and occult practices of many cultures. The scepters, staves, and maces carried by monarchs and high priests alike occur with such frequency in the history of bygone eras as to suggest that they, at the very least, these items are aspects of some type of archetypical symbol which the human mind seems to appreciate, perhaps quite subliminally. In any case, the energy bar tool technique involves envisaging a small, intensely pulsating dot of light, which the participant charges in their imagination with an enormous energy until it is virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, which they then use to channel forces from the universe to a selected part of the body for purposes of healing and revitalization. Part E, remote viewing. In addition, the energy bar tool is used as a portal for initiating a follow-on technique called remote viewing. In this context, the participant turns their bar of energy into a whirling vortex through which they send their imagination in search of new and illuminating insights. The apparent purpose of the symbolism involved in the vortex seems to be to cue the subconscious and convey it to instructions as to what the participant wishes to do, but in the terms of nonverbal symbols, which the right hemisphere and the mind is capable of understanding. Part F, the living body map. This technique provides amplification for application of the energy bar tool as a means of healing specific areas or systems of the human body. The configuration of the participant's body is imagined, and then the various major systems, such as the nervous and circulatory systems, are envisaged in appropriate colors within the confines of the outline being held in the imagination. The energy bar tool is then applied to energizing, balancing, and healing in whatever manner the participant desires. In the process, the participant visualizes various streams of colored energy flowing out of the tool into the organ system or area upon which the revitalizing or healing application is being made. Since colors are the result of differing wavelength of light, which is to say energy at various frequencies, this technique operates on the assumption that as the human body is composed of energy, it can be vitalized and healed through the additive application of additional energy, provided that the energy is applied in the appropriate form. Match your energies, kids. Don't mismatch your energies, okay? Part G. Focus 15. Travel into the past. All of the preceding techniques are conducted at the level expanded awareness known as Focus 12. However, the technique of time travel into the past involves further expansion of consciousness through the inclusion of additional levels of sound on the hemisync tapes. Some of the sound is probably merely an intensification of the basic hemisync frequencies being designed to further modify brainwave frequency and amplitude. Other aspects of the added sound pattern appear to be designed to provide subtle, almost subliminal suggestions to the mind as to what it is desired by way of further expanded consciousness, so as to support the verbal suggestions and instructions also contained on the tape. Even the instructions are highly symbolic, which, with time, being visualized as a huge wheel in the universe with various spokes, each of which gives access to different part of the participant's past. Focus 15 is a very advanced state and is extremely difficult to achieve. Probably less than 5% of all participants in any given gateway experience actually fully achieve the Focus 15 state during the course of the approximately 7 days of training. Nonetheless, Monroe Institute trainers affirm that with enough practice, eventually Focus 15 can be achieved. They also state that not only the individual's past history is available for examination by one who has achieved Focus 15, but other aspects of the past, which the individual himself has had no connection, may also be accessed. Part H. Focus 21. The future. The last and most advanced of all the focus states associated with the Gateway training program involves movement outside of the boundaries of time-space, as in Focus 15, but with attention to discovering the future rather than the past. The individual who has achieved this state has reached a truly advanced level. Except in unusual circumstances, it is probably not attainable except by those who have conditioned themselves through long applications of meditation, or by those who have practiced long and hard the use of the hemisync tapes for a period of months, if not years. Yet to be determined, Lizard Tree. We shall see. The out-of-body movement, part 31. This remarkable phenomenon has been saved for discussion in detail until last because of the interest which occasions special circumstances involved in its attainment. Monroe Institute stresses that the Gateway program was not established solely for the purposes of enabling participants to obtain the out-of-body state, nor does the program guarantee that most participants will succeed in doing it during the course of the training at the Institute. Only one tape out of the many which make up the Gateway experience is devoted to the techniques involved in the out-of-body movement. Basically, these out-of-body state, when their brainwave pattern, their techniques are merely designed to make it easier for the individual to achieve the out-of-body state when their brainwave pattern and personal energy levels have reached a point that they are in apparent harmony with their surrounding electromagnetic environment, such that they feel that they have reached the threshold where separation is a possibility. To facilitate achieving the out-of-body state, Bob Monroe, the founder of Monroe Institute, is quoted in a recent magazine article as saying that technique employs beta signals of around 2,877.3 CPS, cycles per second, 2.8K kilohertz. Since 30 to 40 CPS is considered to be the normal range for beta brainwave signals, those associated with the wakeful state, it is apparent that the Monroe Institute is convinced that the same heightened state of brainwave frequency output, which promotes altered states of consciousness, is also an important consideration in assisting in achievement of out-of-body states. The actual techniques employed for separating from the body involved such simple maneuvers as rolling out, lifting out of the fashion of a telephone pole wherein the individual separates in a rigid head-first manner, such that they find themselves standing at attention in the foot of their physical body and sliding out through either end of the body. Oh, Wally would love this. I'm surprised. It's probably just a little late. You know, they're East Coast kids and business and such like that. I'll let him know. Thanks for reminding me. I always miss Wally. Part 32, role of REM sleep. It is interesting to note that Bob Monroe informed the Gateway class that finished 7th of May, 1983, that an ex-trainer of this operating in Charlottesville, Virginia, found that they could guarantee out-of-body movements by bringing participants down into a rapid eye movement state of sleep, and then use the hemisync technique. This may well be a function of the fact that most, if not all, people reportedly go into an out-of-body state during REM sleep. REM sleep is the deepest possible level of ordinary sleep and involves complete disengagement of the body's motor cortex functions and the neck down. From the neck down, and nearly complete suppression of consciousness in the left brain hemisphere. The effect of this is to put the body in a state of complete stillness, so far as the skeletal muscles structure is concerned, thereby further promoting the state of deep rest needed to eliminate the bifurcation echo. Yeah, he's an amazing cat, amazing friend. However, use of the hemisync tapes at this point may be less a factor in actually achieving the out-of-body state than it is a matter of focusing the brain enough so that a residual memory of having naturally achieved an out-of-body state is carried into the waking state. Indeed, it may even be postulated that some dreams associated with deep levels of sleep are in fact functions of the same kind of altered states of consciousness involved in interaction with the universe that plays a role in all of the Focus 12, 15, and 21 states described above. The difference between those states and the condition of the mind in REM sleep seems to be that the left hemisphere is almost totally disengaged in the latter experience, such as the memory of what was achieved in the altered states of consciousness cannot usually be retrieved by conscious desire, because the left hemisphere has no knowledge of its existence or its location in the right hemisphere. Admittedly, some people can be trained to remember their REM state dreams through intense conditioning in the waking state, but even that may be more a function of establishing pathways in the right hemisphere, which the left hemisphere can access following re-entry into the wakeful state, than it is an indication of any specific left hemisphere conscious involvement in the process during REM sleep. In any event, the three apparent conditions required for voluntary inducing of an out-of-body state in most individuals seems to be: 1. Achievement of a state of profound quiet in the body, such as that the bifurcation echo phase and resonance at approximately 7 Hertz is established. 2. Synchronization of the two brain hemispheres' wave patterns. And 3. Subsequent stimulation of the right hemisphere of the mind to attain a state of heightened alertness, which of course interferes with brain hemisphere synchronization, but not until a sufficient level of enhanced frequency range has first been established to help achieve the out-of-body state. Premonition. Yes, indeed. And is time travel premonition? And as well as, I would ask, is the sense that there's a Mandela effect, is that time travel, or is that just altered states of dimension? Changes in our environment, adjusting for one reason or another. Does it have anything to do with this process? Other people practicing it? If we know about it, and I'm here telling you about it, can you imagine what else has gone on? Part 33, information collection potential. The information acquisition potential associated with the out-of-body state seems to attract the most attention from the standpoint of developing practical applications for the gateway technique. Unfortunately, although the out-of-body state can apparently be achieved by many people without excessive expenditure of time or effort, the purpose to which it can be put are currently limited by the fact that although individuals in that state may travel anywhere on an instantaneous basis in either the terrestrial or in other spheres, information distortion in the former context remains a major concern. To date, according to one of the trainers at Monroe Institute, numerous experiments have been conducted involving persons moving from one coast to the other in the out-of-body state to read a series of 10 computer-generated numbers in a university laboratory. Although most have acquired enough of the digits to make it clear that their consciousness was present, none have ever succeeded in getting all 10 correct. This seems to be a function of the fact that the physical reality in the present is not only the only holographic influence which the individual may encounter, is not the only holographic influence which the individual may encounter in an out-of-body state. There are also energy patterns left by people or events occurring at the same physical site without being viewed, but from the past rather than the present. In addition, since thoughts are the product of energy patterns, and energy patterns are reality, it may also be possible that individuals encounter thought forms while in an out-of-body state which mingle with the physical reality and are not easily differentiated. Finally, as Melissa Jaeger writes, there is another potential problem area in the sense that holograms can be viewed pseudoscopically, that there is, to say, inside out or backwards, just as well as they can be seen in a proper perspective. Some of the distortions occurring may ultimately may perceive the holographic energy patterns given off by people or things interacting in time-space reality in a somewhat distorted form. Wow, I could, you know, that kind of deja vu premonition is a very real thing. And I would say that is just as likely to be an overlap of reality as it is premonition, because who's to say that we aren't already there in the hologram anyways? The science supports that we already exist there. Oops. Sorry. Small, fluffy one. "34. Belief system considerations. In 1967, Alexandra David Neal and Lama Yongjin wrote a book entitled Secret Oral Teachings in Tibetan Buddhist Sects, from which the following quote is taken. "The tangible world is movement, say the masters. Not a collection of moving objects, but movement itself. There are no objects in movement. It is the movement which constitutes the objects which appear to us. They are nothing but movement. This movement is a continued and infinitely rapid succession of flashes of energy. In Tibetan, Sal or Shu. All objects perceptible to our senses, all phenomena of whatever kind and whatever aspect they may assume, are constituted by a rapid succession of instantaneous events." The classic description of the universal hologram is to be found in a Hindu sutra, which says, "In the heaven of Indra, there is said to be a network of pearls so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it." I have cited this quotation because it shows that the concept of the universe, which at least some physicists are now coming to accept, is identical in its essential aspect with the one known to the learned elite in selected civilizations and cultures of the high attainment in the ancient world. This concept, the concept of the cosmic egg, for example, is well known to scholars familiar with the ancient writings of the Eastern religions. Nor are they the theories presented in the paper at variance with the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. The concept of visible reality, i.e. the created world, as being an emanation of an omnipotent and omniscient divinity who is completely unknowable in their primary state of being, the absolute at rest in infinity, is a concept straight out of Hebrew mystical philosophy, it says. Even the Christian concept of the Trinity shrines through the description of the absolute, as presented in this paper, the description of energy totally at rest in infinity fits the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father, while the infinite self-consciousness resident in the energy provided the motive force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality corresponds with the Son. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project a hologram of self-consciousness. A hologram of itself and then perceive it. Let me read that one more time. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. That hologram is a mirror image of the absolute in infinity. Still exists outside of time and space, but is one step removed from the absolute and is the actual agent of all creation, all reality, and the eternal thought or concept of self, which results from the self-consciousness, serves, and now to the page that was originally missing. It serves the absolute as the model around which the evolution of time-space revolves, to ultimately attain a reflection of and union with them. That the thought model, which perfectly reflects the essence or spirit of the absolute, fits the Christian metaphysical description of the Holy Spirit. Finally, our description of the universal hologram, the torus of creation and evolution, is neither new nor original. Its use as the figure of the universe of creation, developing, and evolution is found in various stylized representations in virtually every religious system of antiquity, whether Eastern or Western derivation, whether it's the stylized labyrinth once popularized in the Hellenic world, the spiralized version of the Hebrew tree of life, or its Hindu counterpart, or the Chinese spiral through the fourfold powers. The ultimate meaning is the same. Mystics the world over, it seems, have perceived the universal hologram in the same spiral form and have incorporated that intuitive knowledge in their religious writings from antiquity to the present. Number 35, left brain limitations. Lizard Tree, yes, we do. You're okay. That's the lovely thing about video. You can always play it back. I am just reading after all. Come on in, Flezaby. The stream is fine. Hope you're doing well. Yes, as a matter of fact, Lizard Tree, it does say that we have and retain our identity. And although the free will goes away for the trade of the all-knowing, once we return into the hologram of the consciousness, we receive again that ability to have free will. And as it was saying, it fits perfectly with all of the modern, it doesn't contend or contradict any of the current belief systems on Earth, as far as they know. My pleasure. Hope you're doing well. Let me see, where was I? That thought model, which perfectly reflects the essence of spirit, of the absolute, fits the Christian metaphysical description of the Holy Spirit. Finally, our description of the universal hologram, the torus of creation and evolution, is neither new nor original. Its use as the figure of the universe, of creation, developing, and evolution is found in various stylized representations in virtually every religious system of antiquity, whether of Eastern or Western derivation. Whether it's the stylized labyrinth once popular in the Hellenic world, the spiralized version of the Hebrew tree of life, or its Hindu counterpart, or the Chinese spiral through the fourfold powers, the ultimate meaning is the same. Mystics the world over, it seems, have perceived the universal hologram in the same spiral form and have incorporated that intuitive knowledge in their religious writings from antiquity to the present. Part 35, Left Brain Limitations. 20th century, I just want to cover it again. 20th century physics would seem to be revisiting insights belonging to mankind as far as back as written records can take us. The only difference is that 20th century physics is using a left brain, linear quantitative style of reasoning to approach the same knowledge which the mystics of old apparently acquired in a holistic, intuitional, right brain style. As a tool of old, in the hands of our left brain culture, Gateway would seem to be a promising method for achieving the intuitive, holistic type of interface with the universal hologram needed to provide the context that thinkers like Einstein have sought in their labors to discover a unified field theory in physics. For persons in our profession, whose concerns revolve around strategic issues, tactical questions, and matters of managerial form and system, access to a new world of intuitive perception and self-reflection would seem to offer, in the long term, the means by which to know in a truly objective way. This is so because the self-imposed limitations to balance perception and objective logic, which our cultural and personal psychological subjectively imposes when we use the strictly left brain thinking style, could be offset by the holistic form of perception associated with altered states of consciousness. To the extent that we come to perceive ourselves fully in the context of that portion of the universal hologram, which is the reflection of ourselves, to the extent we release ourselves from the prison of subjectivity. Number 36. Self-knowledge. It was axiomatic to the mystic philosophers of old that this first step in personal maturity could be expressed in the aphorism, "Know thyself." To them, the education of a man undertook as its primary step achievement of an introverted focus so that they learned what was within themselves before attempting to approach the outside world. They rightly assumed that they could not effectively evaluate and cope with the world until they fully understood the personal psychological balance. The insights being provided by 20th century psychology in this context through the use of various kinds of personality testing seem to be a revitalization of this ancient intuition. But no personality test or series of tests will ever replace the depth and fullness of the perception of self which can be achieved when the mind altered states of consciousness sufficiently to perceive the very hologram of itself, which it has projected into the universe in its proper context as part of the universal hologram in a totally holistic and intuitional way. This would seem to be one of the real promises of the gateway experience from the standpoint of its ability to provide a portal through which, based on months of, not years of practice, the individual may pass in their search to find self. Personal effectuality, let me say that again, personal effectuality and truth in the larger sense. Number 37, motivational aspect. It is a step-by-step procedure which involves repetitive practice of the techniques concerned, which, using each new insight as a means of penetrating further during the next practice session. But the rate of progress is so much faster with the gateway approach than it is with the transcendental meditation or other forms of mental self-discipline. And its horizons seem to be so much wider than the discipline needed to practice it would seem to be within the means of even the impatient, result-oriented, skeptical pragmatist of our society. Unlike yoga and other forms of Eastern mental discipline, gateway does not require the infinite patience and total personal subservience to and faith in a system of discipline designed to absorb all the individual's energies over most of a lifetime. Rather, such that enough feedback is available to motivate and energize the individual to continue working with it. Indeed, the speed with which an individual may expect to progress seems less a function of the number of hours spent practicing than it is a question of the speed with which he or she is able to use the insights gained to release anxieties and stresses within both the mind and the body. These points of energy blockage seem to provide the principal barriers to achieve the enhanced energy states and focus of mind needed for rapid progression. The more compulsive, the more uptight the individual may be at the outset, the more barriers he or she will initially encounter to achieve a deep or immediate experience. But as the insights begin to come and the blockages begin to dissolve, the way ahead becomes increasingly clear, and the value of gateway moves from the status of a matter of intellectual assessment to one of personal experience. Number 38, the conclusion. There is a sound, rational basis in terms of physical science parameters for considering gateway to be plausible in terms of its essential objectives. Intuitional insights of not only the personal but of a practical and professional nature would seem to be within bounds of reasonable expectations. However, a phased approach for entering the gateway experience in an accelerated mode would seem to be required if the time needed to reach advanced states of altered consciousness is to be brought within more manageable limits from the standpoint of establishing an organization-wide exploitation of gateway's potential. The most promising approach suggested in the foregoing study involves the following steps. A. Begin by using the gateway hemisync tapes to achieve enhanced brain focus and to induce hemisphere synchronization. B. Then add strong REM sleep frequencies to induce left brain quiescence and deep physical relaxation. C. Provide hypnotic suggestion designed to enable an individual to induce deep auto-hypnotic states at will. D. Use auto-hypnotic suggestion to attain enhanced focus of concentration and motivation in rapidly progressing through Focus 12 exercises. E. Then repeat steps A and B following use of auto-hypnotic suggestion that an out-of-body movement will occur and be remembered. F. Repeat step E to achieve facility in gaining out-of-body state under consciousness control. Conscious control. Repeat step E to achieve facility in gaining out-of-body state under conscious control. Alter hypnotic suggestion to stress ability to consciously control out-of-body movement and maintain even after REM sleep state ends. G. Approach Focus 15 and 21 objectives. Escape from time-space and interact with new dimensions from the out-of-body perspective. H. Use multi-focus approach to solve problems of distortion in terrestrial information gathering trips. This approach involves the use of 3 individuals in the out-of-body state. One viewing the target object here in time-space, one viewing it at Focus 15 as it slips into the immediate past, and one viewing it at Focus 21 as it slips from the immediate future. Debrief all 3 comparative data gathered from the 3 points of view. If care is taken to ensure that the 3 all go out of body together, it is the same environment. Their consciousness energy systems should resonate in sympathetic oscillation. They can tune to the same target on different planes, dimensions, with greater effectiveness. Yes, it does seem to affect a portion of the process as well. That ego, once you get to Focus 15, must be stripped. You cannot let the ego hold you into reality as you have prepared it. One must escape it by pulling off the mask, essentially, through the veil of one's own self, through one's own hologram. Step outside of that. It's literally what it tells us, yes. So the ego is nothing more than a trick to ourself. I think, that's the classic old guru talk. But we'll get to that in a second. Debrief all 3 and compare data gathered from the 3 points of view. If care is taken to ensure that the 3 all go out of body together in the same environment, their consciousness energy systems should resonate in sympathetic oscillation. They can tune into the same target on different planes, dimensions, with greater effectiveness. I. Encourage pursuit of full self-knowledge by all individuals involved in the foregoing experiments to enhance objectivity in an out-of-body observation and thinking, and to remove personal energy blockages likely to retard rapid progress. J. Be intellectually prepared to react to possible encounters with intelligence. Non-corporeal energy forms when time-space boundaries are exceeded. K. Arrange to have groups of people in Focus 12 state unite their altered consciousness to build holographic patterns around sensitive areas to repulse possible unwanted out-of-body presences. L. Encourage more advanced gateway participants to build holographic patterns of successful attainment and rapid progress for advanced colleagues to assist them in progressing through gateway system. If these experiments are carried through, it is to be hoped that we will truly find a gateway to gateway and to the realm of practical application for the whole system of techniques which comprise it. The bibliography contains number 1, Betov Itzhak, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. Ferguson, Maryland, Carl Pribram's Changing Reality, Human Behavior. Gliedman Johns, Einstein Against the Odds, The Great Quantum Debate. Science Digest, June 1983. Jaeger Melissa, Monograph, The Lamp Turn Laser. Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences, Faber, Virginia, undated. Monroe, Robert A., Journeys Out of the Body, New York, Doubleday Company, 1971. Peirce, Jill, The Mystic Spiral, New York. Thames and Hudson, 1980. Sanella Lee, MD, Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence. Stone Pat, Altered States of Consciousness, The Mother Earth News. Tart, Charles T., Altered States of Consciousness, 1969. And that, my friends, concludes the report as handed in and compiled for the Department of the Army on June 9th, 1983, including the formerly redacted 25th page. If you have any questions about this, feel free to call now. I'll give you a couple minutes. If not, I'll start my closing remarks. Because I think that it really does give us an idea as to how permeable and how strange, how wonderful, how possibly magical our universe can be. Not just our universe, but the metaverse and the omniverse and the absolute. The fact that we are inside of a hologram, projecting ourselves, taking part in it, that we currently have the free will of creation in so many ways. Not an absolute creation, but in our own selves, in our own reality, in our own experiences. It tells us why we go through the Job's experience. And in fact, it even mirrors the tale when you think about it. So, what does it mean that they found these processes, that you can access them? Well, let me just tell you this. They're actually on YouTube, strangely enough. And it's called the Gateway Experience. And it's put on by the Monroe Institute. And I started the show with it. And I started playing Focus 15. Because they have all of the levels right here on YouTube. And I'm going to link it in chat. Give me 1 second while I kill the video here so we don't go all crazy. All crazy with it. Give me uno momento. So this is the actual link to link it in chat. Give me 1 second. That's how you know I'm. So that right there is Focus 15. I'm guessing there aren't any questions currently, so I'll just wrap it up. Wrap it up, E. What does it mean that we're all part of this massive system? What does it mean that we're able to create our own realities with enough focus and that anyone can do it? And then there's a process, a technological process to help us and to actually get us into an altered state of consciousness to the point of stepping outside of quote unquote reality through the veils where we might meet other beings, non-corporeal beings. What does it mean that our ego, our id, gets in the way? Well, it suggests that our imagination is as powerful a thing as our experience of reality, and that they feed off of one another because we are, as I talked about at the beginning, manifesting our experiences for a learned behavior somewhere when we return into the black hole. Because energy is never created nor destroyed, it is emanated and transferred at all times. And as is described, and we essentially know this, that we come from the black hole and we move through this form in the hologram. And that is the consciousness, and it exists all at once, and it collapses and folds and moves not unlike the waveforms. In fact, it is all waveform. Which means an interference pattern creates physical matter. Now, does that mean that everything is magic? And we created AI in our image. And we've created movies and art. And we've chiseled the world to make it our own form. And we make ourselves who we believe. and we see others as they believe themselves to be, until we decide that they are not as we wish them to be, but rather what we believe them to be. It's perception all the way around, and it manifests and folds and creates everything, and is more powerful. It comes to pass that beware what you think about others. Beware what you think about yourself. Beware what you put into the world. Because it's not that it just comes back to you, but rather that time and time again, one piece of information after another, and now the information about returning to the absolute and being part of it, and the all knowledge, and being part of the program, essentially. Doesn't make us special, no, because everything is going through this. But rather, it means that we are participating in the manufacturing of the experience without knowing the full outcome, yet requiring a sense that we do know somewhere along the way. And it's probably, as Lao Tzu would describe, a great giggle at the universe. And the best we can do is be kind and love one another. Because at the end of the day, what can we do but free ourselves from our mental prisons? Because those prisons are belief systems we make for ourselves. They are imaginary in every sense, because we are imaginary in every sense, because there is imaginary in every sense, as sense is imaginary. Because you are you, for you being you as the best you can be. It may all be confusing, but this is the portion where you get to focus 15 and you're challenged to get past the matrix, and you can be held there by your own ego. At least that's what it says in the paperwork of the review of the gateway process. I can only urge one thing, and I think you know what that is. That if you're going to avoid the things you find, and you see others doing the same, I urge with every bone of my body, with every sense of my being, with every imaginative ounce of my soul and spirit, that you and I share a little piece of across time and space and outside of time and space, apparently. I can only say one thing. Please, if the bar gets real low, look up. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Tomorrow night, we're going to be holding a meme panel. Bizarro World Rules. I expect absolute mayhem. Should be some neat guests. It'll be call-in. Going to start it straight off the bat. Meme panel on cartoons. Whose cartoon is best cartoon? I think that's pretty much what it is. My pleasure, Lizard Tree. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. It's very awesome for me to have been allowed to share that and have it out there in the record. And yeah, fun stuff. Really interesting weirdness, by the way. amazing information. And by the way, once again, if you get a chance, check it out. Exploring the Gateway Experience on the Gateway Experience channel. That's the image you're looking at right there. In any case, tomorrow night, about 5:30, West Coast time, meme panel, aka, oh, Mayhem is always good. Yeah, meme panel tomorrow night. The seriously silly cartoon debate. It's absolutely seriously serious, silly cartoon debate meme panel. Yes. So very seriously silly. Complete Bizarro world rules. About 5:30 p.m. Lita will actually be on the panel. I'm going to be the judge. And the rules are pretty simple. I expect complete hyperbole, absolute rhetoric, like nonstop ad hominem. Pretty much, if it doesn't include almost hedonistic purposes, I might like just ban you from the round. It's going to be rough. It's going to be like the Gong Show, but, you know, a debate about cartoons. So get yourself ready. The winner wins. You don't win shit. You just, you're memeing a cartoon. So it's all good. Anyhow, you win the right to feel good about yourself. You can pat yourself on the back and say you spoke to another human today. That's so nice of you. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you trusting me with your entertainment, as well as for listening to me read the report on the gateway process. Go check it out for yourself, and hopefully you can attain Focus 21. I'm going to try for sure. Have a great night, y'all. Be safe or have fun, whichever comes first, or both. Oh yeah, and most importantly, look up.